In this video, we're going to be making this swivel handle. The customer has furnished us with this part that they want made. As you can see, it is an articulating. It's really three pieces, so it's just going to be the clevis part, the threaded part, which will thread into a swing bolt, and there's like a 1/2-inch pin we're going to put in here. So before we go any further, we're going to do this on our CNC mill and our CNC lathe. So the first thing we're going to do is this end. We're going to make like a radius right here on both sides. Then we're going to mill the slot, drill and ream the hole for the 1/2-inch pin. So before we can do any of that, I've got to get some type of drawing in the CAD environment so I can create some G-code. So this is what I've drawn so far. From this, I'll use to generate the G-code I need. The first thing we got to do though is going back to the part. This is going to be turned in a lathe from flat bar. So we're probably going to put it in a 4-jaw chuck. We're going to put a center drill at this end of the handle so we can turn this whole section down. Alright, this is the part we have to work with. We got a piece of 1.5 by 1 inch by roughly 7 3/8. We're going to make that handle out of it. The first thing I've done is put spray glue in here, and I'm going to just make a mark roughly where the center is, because we're going to be doing this in a 4-jaw chuck. So we're 1 inch. So I'm going to set my caliper to 1/2 inch. Scribe it, and I'm going to do from both sides, because this is a piece of hot rolled steel, so it's not perfect. And we're 1.5 inches in this diameter, so we're going to set for 3/4. I'm going to scribe it from both sides. So I got a nice scribe mark, because I want to make sure I'm on the center when we go to start turning this. Okay, if you'll notice, I got my 4-jaw chuck up here. I've used spray bluing to do 2 of the jaws. And these are the 2 that I'm only gonna work off of. I'll only use the other 2 for slight adjustment. Because it's hot rolled steel, we're probably gonna have to do a little bit of adjustment. But I basically already have it set, so I only want to move off of the 2 spray blued jaws. That's the mark. Now, I have not moved the other 2 jaws, so theoretically it should be where I want it to be. But we're going to put a center in there and compare against my scribe mark to make sure. Okay, at this point I've got my line scribed, and I got my 4-jaw lined up where I think it should be. So what I'm going to do is look down this axis. I'm going to compare it to the tip of my center, to my mark, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And what I'm looking for is any error one way, left or right of that center. Because what will happen is I've got 20 of these parts to make. Somewhere down the line, inevitably, mission creep will find its way in here in a negative way. If you don't know what I mean by mission creep, it means if you become complacent and you don't check every one of these parts as I'm showing you right now, down the line, you're going to have one of them that's off. And it caught you off guard because you didn't do this each time. So this slows the process down, yes, but it also gives me the insurance of knowing that each one of my parts is going to be right. All right, now we're going to face it off. Okay, now we're ready to center drill our part. So up to this point, we got our part faced off. We have it center drilled in preparation for the turn that we're going to do a little bit later. But right now we're going to do the clevis end while we still have it in the rectangular form of the material. Gives us something real good and sturdy to hold on to. So the first operation we're going to use a 1/2 inch carbide end mill. We're going to do this outside radius. Our end mill only has 1 inch flue to cut. Our part is 1.5 inches, so I cannot get that whole cut. So we're going to do it half and half. I'm going to do it outside 1/2 inch radius. Flip the part over again, 1/2 inch outside radius. Finishes that. Then we're going to drill and ream a 1/2 inch hole for the pin. The last thing we're going to do is flip it this way. We're going to put a 1/2 inch shim up under the part to maintain my Z0 in the machine. That way I don't have to change it just because I moved the part. And we're going to mill the slot for the clevis. Okay, we have finally made it to the milling portion. We got our stop set up. As you can see, these are soft jaws left over from the last job that was done, but that's fine. We don't need hard jaws for what we're doing. So the first thing I'm going to do is use a 1/2 inch shim to set the part on. For the first operation, the part will be oriented here. We're going to mill a 1/2 inch radius with an optional stop in the program. Then we're going to flip the part over 180 degrees. We're going to finish the radius. We're going to drill and ream a 1/2 inch hole, which brings us to our third operation. We're going to change from our 1/2 inch shim to our 1 inch shim. The reason for this is because our part is 1 by 1.5 inches. It makes up that extra 1/2 inch that I would otherwise lose. So now my Z0 is going to be in the same spot. I don't have to change any of that. We're ready to mill the slot at this end. But before we do, we got to set up our XY0, which is going to be the back left corner of this part. So we're going to use an edge finder and do that right now. Alright, so far we have our XY coordinates set, our part located against the stop. The next thing we're going to do is put a 1/2 inch end mill in the machine. We're going to touch off the top and find our Z, and we're going to do all that in the next video. If you've enjoyed watching this, please hit the subscribe button, and thanks for watching.